हाय दोस्तों, स्वागत है आपका एक आरोग्य रिएक्शन में। और आज हम एक इंटरव्यू देखने जा रहे हैं, एक पॉडकास्ट इंटरव्यू बेसिकली नूरा फतेही का बियर बाइसेप्स के साथ, जहाँ पे शी इज़ गोइंग टू टेल व्हाट मुस्लिम स्पिरिचुअलिटी इज़ लाइक, नमाज, रमज़ान, इस्लाम, व्हाट इज़ दिस लाइफ ऑल अबाउट। सो यूजुअली जैसे हमने शाहरुख खान का जब इंटरव्यू देखा था तो लाइक बहुत लोगों में से आप में से कॉमेंट करके बताया था कि शाहरुख खान, हमने ये पता पाया था कि बहुत सारी चीज़ों को फॉलो नहीं करते हैं इस्लाम में, हो गया ना। आप सबने बहुत लोगों में से लिखा था कि दैट शाहरुख खान इज़ नॉट अ ट्रू इस्लाम पर्सन। What does Nora Fatehi knows about Islam? Let's find out through this podcast. So वीडियो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग होने वाला है, आइए इसे शुरू करते हैं।
After Ramadan, do you feel heightened intuition?
Yeah, even during.
During also?
Yeah,
because
during.
of the fasting?
Yeah, because I fast every day, even though I'm working and everything, but I never leave my fast. Every day since the age of 14, I have fasted. It's just been instilled in our brains, like when I was 14, and like when you are supposed to start fasting after your puberty, your parents hammered in your head, you have to fast. So growing up, we went to school fasting, we did everything fasting. It was normal. So when Ramadan came, you stuck to it. So even now, people are like, how are you fasting and you're working and you're traveling every day, you're on a flight every day, you're on sets every day, you have to be active. A part of my job description is to be physically active as a performer, right? But I don't break my fast. I keep my fast going. And then you keep it going, whatever. It's not the end of the world. In fact, it's a great time for me to become more disciplined and more spiritual. And when you know that you're going into a situation that's going to be physically, mentally tough, you just strengthen your discipline. And it works so well in other aspects in life, in your work, in your relationships. You think differently, you act differently. And I have so much respect for people who fast and are still working. Like there's an athlete recently, he was speaking about, he's a basketball player. He's fasting while he's playing basketball. And, you know, everyone's like, how are you doing it? He's like, well, it's my duty. I have to do it, and I have to be spiritually inclined and respectful to my religion, but I still have to go to work. So why do I have to choose this or this? So I fast, I go to work, and in the midst of all this, I feel more in tune, as you said, to my intuition, more in tune to my actions, my thoughts, and more spiritually sensitive. Yeah.
You also pray?
Yeah,
every
for
day?
sure. Yes.
That's where the intuition comes from.
Yes, 100%. I think you're right. It's the same thing as when people meditate. I feel
is
like
meditation.
Yeah, prayer is definitely meditation. And when you go into your zone of connecting with your creator, whoever that is for you or for anyone else, you're on a different realm, I feel like, spiritually and mentally.
That's the survival skills shield that people don't understand, because people are trying to practicalize and rationalize everything. But when you actually begin praying with your heart, you realize everything that it gives you, especially if your ambition is huge.
Especially if your ambition is huge. Listen, it's not just ambition, but especially if you are sensitive to nazar, sensitive to people who don't have good intentions or goodwill for you, especially if you're out exposed to the world. You know, you need a shield, you need safety, you need something to guard you. And I think prayer really does guard you and help you get out of certain situations. When we pray 5 times a day, what's so beautiful about it is that in the chaos of the world and whatever you're doing, there's 2 minutes that you stop and you remember your creator and you thank him, and you also ask for things. You ask for protection, you ask for forgiveness, you ask for all these things. And it's so nice to have that ability 5 times a day, if you are able to pray 5 times a day. I'm not saying I pray 5 times a day. There are sometimes I forget to, sometimes I'm too busy, sometimes I'd only do 2 or 3. It's a working progress for me. Between me and myself, I work towards doing that. But when you can, it's a moment where you connect and you remember certain things. And of course, when you remember to be more grateful and thankful, the universe or God gives you more, right? It's a transaction almost, right? The law of attraction. And when you're seeking a moment with your creator, automatically that makes you more spiritually stronger, and that makes you more protected from the external things that are coming your way, especially if you're a public figure.
Okay, so this is something I wondered about namaz. Okay. When you're sitting for it, there's a chant you're doing in your head, right? So while you're chanting, are you also thinking of your wishes?
So you're not chanting. So what you're doing is, first, there are things that we memorize when we're doing our namaz. So you're memorizing the shahada, right? Which is your
Prayer.
well, your shahada is basically bearing witness that there's only one God, etc., right? So you're reiterating that. Once you reiterate that, you start to read the ayats from the Quran, which you're memorizing. There are specific ayats that we have to say when we start our prayer, like surahs, like Surah Al-Fatehi. That's a surah that we have to always start our namaz with. And all Muslims who pray have memorized this surah. So we always start with that. Surah means a whole chapter, basically, of the Quran. Then there are...
Is it like in the form of poetry?
Yeah.
So
It really is. Yes, it really is. Yeah, and you recite it. When you're reciting it, you recite other chapters of the Quran, and then you start to say things like, I thank God, the Creator, I thank God, the Creator. And then when you prostrate and you have your head to the floor and you're praying, that is the moment where you're asking for forgiveness. That is the moment where you're asking for anything. You're making your du'as, basically. That is the moment where you're connected to God at a different level altogether. And people use that moment for a lot of things, to say a lot of things. Most people use that for forgiveness, really, because we're sinners, right? Throughout the day, we're constantly sinning. So that's the moment where, again, you're reconnecting with God. Again, you're trying to clean your slate. And then when we get up again, we recite the surahs again, we do our ayats again, and then we go back down. And it is kind of a bit of, it is literally meditation. It really is. Because what you're doing when you're meditating is you're chanting, right? But you're chanting really strong words. They have meaning. They have spiritual meaning, right? And they're opening realms where you're starting to connect with another higher energy. So when we're doing our namaz, and whatever we say, as much as I'm saying there's surahs and their ayats, but they have a lot of strong meaning and energy attached, yes, and power attached to them. So we are technically, it's almost the same. It's almost the same, yeah. But it's there's a whole science behind prayer. And I think because we've been so distracted with worldly things and technology and phone and Instagram, and there was a period of time where it wasn't cool to be religious, and it wasn't cool to talk about spirituality, and it wasn't cool to be connected with your creator. So that era, which I think it's disappearing slowly, in that era, people didn't want to think about this or talk about it. Now we're going into an era where people want to talk about it more. They're open-minded. They want to learn more. I think we should take this opportunity to research these things more, because there is a science behind why we do what we do, why we pray, why we connect ourselves to our creator, and why we meditate, and why we isolate ourselves for some time, and we try to almost connect our inner being with the higher energy, the higher power.
This is a saying that came up on the show in one of our past episodes. Someone said that, we're so obsessed with reality that we don't understand that reality will actually begin after this reality ends. And then we realize that...
Is this even real?
Yeah, that all this is a dream.
Yeah.
And you're just playing a part in the illusion.
Look, it's possible. We have to be open to all these things.
Words have power, paragraphs have power, poetry
Thoughts have power.
Language has power, especially ancient languages.
Yes.
I think what I was getting to with that question was about what was the word you said before dua? Like you bend down to the dua, but right before that, the paragraph?
The surahs?
Surahs.
Yeah.
So that would be inward, right? That you're taking it in, you're memorizing it, and duas are outward. Then you go back to doing something inward.
Something that you've already memorized. Duas are things that are coming out from your system, from your brain. So there's receiving, and then there's giving that happens.
While you're receiving, does any other thought enter your head?
Yes, of course. See, look, here's the thing about praying, right? And meditating. You have to have immense self-discipline and self-control, which is so hard to do as a human. And even like the deen, even the religion tells you this, that when you're praying, it is probably one of the most hardest things, because you have to be mentally so focused that your brain cannot go anywhere else. You can't be thinking about, what am I going to do today? What's the daily schedule? Or did I eat? Did I not eat? Did I switch off the light in the bathroom before or after? Is my friend going to call me? What am I going to do next week? You can't be thinking. You have to be only focused on that one thing, that moment you have with your creator. So how do you do that as a human when we are so multidimensional? Most of us multitask. Our brains are running on 1,000 kilometers per hour. A lot of us have ADHD also. There's a lot of factors. So how do you do this? I'm sure when you meditate, you have a hard time tuning out too, right? For the full time that you're meditating. So what happens is you might tune out for a second, and then you bring yourself back again. It happens again. You bring yourself back again. And then you keep doing that until you're so disciplined, which is hard, but you work towards that. And once you're able to have that kind of mind control on yourself, imagine what all you can do in your life in other departments, how much discipline and self-control you can have. So what you're doing is you're building on your character, you're building on your morals and values, and you're building on you as a human. When you're outside in the society, you're able to control yourself more, and you're probably able to sin less too. You're able to make certain decisions because you're controlling your mind better. You have more self-control. But it's a deep conversation. That's like a different episode altogether, because nobody's ever asked me this question. So this would be kind of new for a lot of people to hear me speak about this kind of topic. But definitely this could be a separate episode, because I think a lot of people are interested to know everything behind what we just discussed.
Prayer builds you up. That's what I truly believe.
It definitely builds you up, and it builds your faith. It solidifies your faith, and it creates.
Nice. Did not expect that Nora Fatehi will know all this, and I would say she's a real Islamic and very good follower of Islam. And the way she said, the way she believes, उसने examples दिए, the air does not exist, but the air does not, we can't see, but it exists in a similar way. God and Allah exist, is what she said. And what a beautiful example. The way she fast from the age of 14 years, वो fast कर रही हैं, वो सारे रोज़े रखती हैं, वो किस तरीके से आके दुआ पढ़ती हैं, सूरा पढ़ती हैं, और उन्हें by heart याद भी करती हैं, और every day वो pray करती हैं irrespective of her busy schedule. I mean, really hats off to her. So काफ़ी मज़ेदार था. How do you like it? How do you like her interview? What do you think? What are your thoughts on the same? Let me know in the comments box. I will see you in the next session. Tab tak ke liye, bye bye.